Hey, Dom.
Hey, Jenna.
You know it snowed today?
It's April.
I know. Well, as I keep reminding myself, as Prince said,
No.
sometimes it snows in April. One of the many weird things that's been happening.
Well, it's April. I'm done with winter. Go away. We need sunshine. I need to be out.
Exactly. Well, you know what? Speaking of such things, let's start the show and move on with what we've got here.
Sounds good.
All right. Hi, I'm Jenna,
And I'm Dom, and we're both award-winning journalists.
who've recently been laid off.
Our industry is experiencing a seismic shift, and it's shed a lot of really good journalists.
So where does that leave us? Well, we're definitely laid off.
And we're looking for new jobs, looking for what's left of the industry, and what to do next.
And we're looking at all of it. So if you're a fellow laid off journalist, a working journalist, or someone who admires the craft, we're looking to build community.
Develop new skills, and try to figure out what just happened.
Welcome to Laid Off and Looking. I think I've got a little bit of a frog in my throat. I don't know what that's all about. You know what?
You
I'm going
sound
to blame
good.
it on the snow. I'm going to blame it on the snow. So, Dom, what have we
Blame
got
it
for a
on the
headline? I know.
snow. Um, um, yeah, listen, I never said I was a singer.
No, that was actually kind of nice. I would try to warble, but again, I feel like there's a frog in my throat.
Uh, I did want to point out something
Hmm.
that somebody was nominated for an award.
New York Black Journalism Award. Yeah. My piece After Broad Market, about the Kia gun story in Newark, New Jersey was nominated, in the podcasting division, and I'm super duper proud of it. I think it also won, it didn't win officially a Webby. It got like a Webby runner-up. So I'll be getting a certificate,
Amazing.
so I'll have something like official. It's not quite the
Amazing.
Emmy, but
Oh,
something to put.
please. It's
Yeah.
big. That's huge.
So yeah, I am. Thank you for reminding me of that, because that was a big win that I got this week, and
Huge.
I think I let it just life and, let's face it, LinkedIn overshadow my
Taxes,
wins.
as we talked about
Oh
before, life is, yes. There's a lot, as we
yeah.
certainly know. But congratulations. So
Well,
deserved.
I thank you so much.
But yeah, I know, you and I have been talking a lot about uh looking at the job sites,
Hmm.
and when you look at them, what a trend that we've been noticing even more so than I think before, which has been a lot of part-time freelancing, even more than before in terms of even producing contracted work, a lot of gigs, stuff going on in the media landscape, news landscape. And, we started talking about um, like what's the reality of working in freelancing? And there was, recently, I know there was, I'm looking over here at a CNBC report on the Labor Department. Now, these are for, of course, this is not just the media field. This is looking at overall job numbers. So
Hmm.
they were saying job creation numbers in February skewed toward part-time positions. Full-time jobs decreased by 187,000, while part-time employment rose by 51,000. So that was just in February. But there was also an article in USA Today in January just talking about how there's a record number of Americans who are choosing to work part-time. Um, and it looks at just how the job market is changing, how there were some people who were doing it initially. Um, there was a point of people wanting to have more flexibility in their work. And,
Hmm.
um, but, we were discussing just like, how does it really, do people want to really work multiple part-time jobs, especially in the field that we work in?
Well,
I,
first I'll say that I love that when you first started that headline, for a second, I thought you were going to say that the report found that, job listings were screwing people out of full-time work. So, that's what I initially heard. That could be my own baggage that I bring to this conversation. Okay. So, one of the things that I will say is that I remember, and this being an issue before the pandemic happened, people pointing out that the gig economy wasn't working. It was grinding people down. And while I can't speak for every single person, I can speak for my own experience. When I first started many moons ago, I was a freelance production assistant, and my basically I only had two morning shifts during morning drive. And if you know broadcasting, you know morning drive starts at like 2 a.m., 4 a.m. Those are hellish hours, but I was only getting those on the weekends. That's all I had. So to keep my foothold in the business, I took a day job 5 days a week working for a legal headhunting firm. I was just working the phones, whatever. But the point is, I did that for 6 months and I grinded so hard that towards the end, basically, I gave myself a unnecessary pregnancy scare because I wasn't dating anybody at the time, because I stopped getting my period because
Wow.
I was getting up and going to work 7 days a week for 6 months. And while yes, you can, because I know people might hear that and say, "Oh, well, I do that all the time." Can does not equal should. My quality of
Right.
life was in the toilet. I was miserable. I was physically starting to have symptoms of so no, I don't think this grind economy is good for anybody.
Yeah,
Rise and grind is toxic.
my experience with freelancing in that world is just not as it's not that severe, but it was definitely just noticing how it's exhausting because there's a big part of it is, of course, your network and you keep
Mhm,
bouncing around. And because things have gotten so much more, you know, tighter in
mhm.
terms of the work that's out there, it's even more so. And I think it's so stressful. I think, at least for me, that's the freelance world is definitely a very stressed out field because you're constantly just like, where's my next job? What's going on? Yeah, and sometimes yes, it's great if you had a great paying gig that lasts you for a while, but then you're right back into it trying to find your next one. It's a highly stressed out field. So I don't, does it work for some people? Maybe. Yeah, I could see that. I could say though, I think most people probably, I mean, for me, yeah, I just feel like it adds unnecessary, some of it can just add unnecessary stress, especially right now, the way the economy is looking at this point. So I don't know. I guess we will see how that all plays out.
Yeah, well, I will say very quickly that I came across being way too much online. A couple of journalists actually, who have been tweeting very regularly and honestly about freelancing. And so we decided to reach out to one of them. Okay, so freelancing as a journalist can be an incredibly complicated and intimidating prospect to address. And so, to get better understanding and answers, we went to writer, author, and writing coach, and in my personal opinion, freelancing expert, Caitlin Kelly. Caitlin, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much for having me.
Absolutely. So I just want to jump right into it and first start with what is the biggest misconception that people have about freelancing as a journalist?
Oof, we could be here all day. I think, and not to be cold and cynical, to think it's going to be fun and easy because the word free sounds like, oh, you wake up in your PJs at noon and like have some bonbons and, watch some TikTok and then maybe write something and then you're kind of done for the day. It's a tremendous amount of, sort of hustle and grind. I'm not a big fan of grinding. You will have to hustle. So I think that's the hardest thing is to understand you're a small business owner. It's a huge shift in mindset. So you're going from being somebody, as we have probably all been, and I have, in a newsroom with colleagues, with editors, with backup, with lawyers to check your copy to make sure you're not libeling somebody. Instead, now you're going to sign contracts that say, "Oh, I'll just take I'll take on all the legal responsibilities and all the costs if I make a mistake." I mean, you have to be really, really attentive to the fact that this is a business and you are going to be doing every single aspect of that business, from keeping your apartment clean, you're the janitor, to you become literally the sales, the marketing, the CIO, the CFO, the CEO. You are running a business. It's not to say you won't enjoy it, but there is a huge shift in how you have to conceive of yourself and how you're going to plan your time and how you're going to market your skills, because it's a constant sales process. These are not things we tend to do as journalists. I mean, we just work in a different way. We're using the same skills, but there's a big shift.
Alan, what about how has freelancing changed over like the past few years? Has it changed a lot over the past 5, 10 years? Like, was
Mm.
it easier making or not just making a living, but was it easier maintaining that type of freelancing lifestyle versus today?
Yes. Yes, it's extraordinarily difficult today. And again, I don't want to be negative, but I don't want people to say, oh, I'm jumping in and this will be awesome and easy. Pay rates are dropping. Magazines are closing, outlets are closing. WBEZ Chicago just laid people off. So it almost doesn't really matter what your medium is, print,
Mhm.
web, magazines, newspapers. There are fewer opportunities, which means there's more people chasing them, and then they pay less than usual. So not a really great combo. Having said that, one of the things I really want to talk about is the other ways that you're going to have to use your skills if you want to make a living, which is nonprofit, NGOs, philanthropies, alumni magazines, universities. I mean, you have to say, oh, I'm a journalist, but I am a writer with journalistic skills, right? Back in the day, so, I've done this for a long time. And I still remember the fall of, and I can remember what year, it might have been 08. We literally lost 15 magazines, like in the space of 6 weeks. That was when Gourmet died. I've lost
You
track.
remember that? No, I remember
See?
that.
Well, that was terrible. So all those markets went away. And now, all the big glossies. So even 5, 10 years ago, you had what were called the Seven Sisters, which are the women's magazines, Ladies' Home Journal, Good Housekeeping. I can't remember all the names of them, Red Book. There were 7 of them. And they all paid $2 a word. And so there was tons of work and tons of money. And you could just like work, have lots of work. And all the women's glossies now. Okay, so Bazaar is still in print. What's left? Bazaar and Vogue are still in print. Glamour's not. Marie Claire is not. And some of the others have gone away. MORE magazine. In 2014, so that is 10 years ago, I got $2.50 a word. That's a lot of money. Very few people are getting that. And it was a very big story. And I got like a $9,000 check. I don't think there's more than 20% of freelancers now in journalism, freelancers, who are getting checks that size. There are some. They're very lucky. I'm not that person right now, which is not a reflection of my talent. It's just, there's so few people chasing these very few really well-paid outlets. There's probably, I wouldn't think there's more than 15 or 20 outlets right now in America that are paying more than $2 a word. And if there are, great. I'd love to meet them. But so my point is, yes, I think it's much harder because you're going to have to work twice as hard for half the money. And there's just no way to sugarcoat that. I'm not saying don't do it, but you have to be ready. And, God forbid, I don't have kids, I don't have student debt. And that's really important to note that privilege, because I don't have the financial pressure that other people do. If I had a bunch of little kids and or student debt, I would be so stressed, I'm not sure I could do it. And I really, really need listeners to know that. You can manage anything you want, and it's not a reflection of skill or talent or hard work. It's a reflection of low pay rates and people who don't reply. I've got a major feature that I pitched to 3 of the bigs. Nobody answered. No, 3 said no. 1 didn't answer. 1 hasn't said anything to 2 emails, and it's a biggie, and they would pay properly.
Sorry, I just want you to circle back real quick for people who don't know, who are the bigs?
So the bigs, Atlantic, Harper's, the New York Times Magazine, New York Magazine, those I would call those the bigs. And then, New York Times, and I've written for them a lot, Washington Post, LA Times, the Financial Times. They don't pay very well, but it's a big. So the bigs to me are huge circulation, to be blunt, well respected, even if not the money. And people would also include places like probably New Republic, The Nation, respected intellectually for sure for their content. Smithsonian pays well, Smart Magazine, Rolling Stone pays well, Smart, Cosmopolitan, like it or not, pays well. So there are a few. And to me, those so big can either be, to be honest, kind of intellectual, not credibility, that's not right, but sort of a big name clip, that people will say, wow, you've written for them. Then there's sort of an understanding you've met a high bar, right? You've cleared a high bar editorially. And at that point, you've kind of proven your worth, maybe not only once, to be very direct. So everybody sort of wants ideally to get a couple of those. I think everybody should try to get a couple of them. I don't think they're as hard as some people think they are. We can come back to that. But there are people doing tons of work for trades, alumni magazines, B2B, websites who don't need or want that. So I want to be clear, not everybody has to want that or need it. it's been helpful for me.
Okay. Well, before we go into, I mean, circling back to how hard is it to get into the bigs, one of the things that, because you did make it a point to say, it's not that you shouldn't do it. And one of the things that we're still seeing is that J schools are not hard up for students. There's still young people who feel the call of this work and they want to do that. But at the same time, with all of the closures and the shutting down and the downsizing, there aren't as many opportunities. My question to you is, does that mean that freelancing contract work is an inevitability if you're going to go into journalism?
Short answer, I think so. I do, and I really appreciate the question. I'm actually lecturing at CUNY soon, and I'm thrilled to be invited to lecture at CUNY Newmark School of Journalism. That's going to be cool, and I'm excited about that. I'm lecturing on pitching, not on like how to write a great lead, but how to pitch a story, because that's what people have to do. The reality of this industry, I think everybody listening knows this. We know this. You can get a great job, and then 6 months later, it's gone. Or 10 months later, or 3 years later. I mean, every single day, you guys are on social media. It's how we met. You're seeing the closures. You're seeing the shutdowns. You're seeing the layoffs. You're seeing the cutbacks. And I think if you're not ready to say, oh, okay, well, my unemployment might be more than like a couple of weeks, because if there's fewer jobs, I mean, just do the math, right? There's more people chasing fewer jobs. And so I think knowing how to freelance, understanding what it takes is a life skill. I mean, come to J school, be my guest, learn the skills for sure, but it's no guarantee of employment. And I think that's scary. And especially if you're graduating with debt. CUNY, thank God, is going to be tuition free soon, which is really exciting, thanks to a big grant from Craig Newmark. Not this year, I think it's 2 years from now.
Mm-hmm.
That's huge. So, but you're still coming into, a pretty shaky industry. The biggest thing, and I had this conversation literally yesterday with a young friend who is incredibly talented photographer who worked in regional newspapers. It was a really painful conversation. She's somebody I love dearly. She's 33. And we met through the Student Journalism Institute from the New York Times. And she's a wedding photographer. And she simply couldn't sustain it. And that's in regional newspapers. She's making twice as much money, freelance. And this is often the case, especially where you are in journalism. If you're entry level, early career, some people are offering you salaries of like 25,000. God bless you if you can live on that anywhere. And there are freelancers, I'm sure, who are making 45, 50, 60. They're hustling hard. Some people make 100. A lot of that won't be journalism. It'll be content marketing. It'll be non-journalism. I don't care. Money's money. Your mortgage broker, your landlord doesn't care who you wrote it for. They care that the money's arriving on time. And I think there has to be, this is a really big issue for a lot of journalists who come into freelance. They're like, well, I'm going to the dark side. Listen, just pay your bills on time. Nobody wants late fees. Nobody wants a 29% APR, which is what Amex is going to charge you if you were late. And they're charging me 19% if I'm on time, which is absurd. And I know these things because I keep track, because I'm a freelancer, because you have to be, this is really important. You cannot be somebody who kind of like zones out on money. When's it due? How much do I owe? I have the time and date memorized of when my Amex bill is due because I only have one credit card to make it simple and easy. And then they give you a statement of the year and you get all your deductions at the end. Like you have to be really, really attentive, I think, to not panic. Like, where's my money coming from? When's it due? A check came in today. I'm like, check, who owes me money? Oh, I do know. I know who that is. But it's not funny because what does it cost to live? I mean, if you can live on $1,500 a month, I don't know how that's possible. If you can, and if your overhead's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6,000 a month, that's a big number. Can you bring in 6,000 every single month on time? That's a lot of money. That's easy for some. And that I think was easier 10 years ago. If somebody's paying $2 a word and you've got like 10 assignments a month like that, you're set. More importantly, you're months ahead. This is really, really important. I'm on Twitter constantly. This morning, we were having a Twitter conversation about late payments. Late payments are a very real fact of freelance, and they're very stressful. So you turn in a story, I won't name the place, but it could take months, plural, for them to even edit it. It hasn't been published. You haven't been paid. Your bills keep coming. Like your bills don't stop going, oh, well, that's a freelance story. So where's the money coming from in the meantime? So, this is not about how to write well. This is about how to survive financially and manage your business as ruthlessly efficiently as you can.
Okay, so then I really feel like this leads into the other question that I keep wondering is, should a journalism major, like be a double major in business, because everything that you described is like you are running a small business. You are your own independent business. And yeah, you might know how to write, you know how to report, you know how to pitch. But if you don't know how to run a small business, it sounds like it's not going to work.
So I just gave this advice the other day, but it was different. So I speak French and Spanish, fluent French and pretty decent Spanish. And I have gotten work because of that. I've gotten full-time jobs. I've gotten a fellowship in France for a year. They've opened amazing doors. I would say, forget studying business. You can get a business book for, $20 at the library or used. No, I would say have a niche, understand science, understand technology, have a foreign language or two or three. No, I don't think you need to study business. I think you have to have business acumen, and that's not rocket science. I think you have to be able to, I'm a generalist, so I bounce around and everybody's like, oh, I have a niche. Well, I've written a lot on business. I've studied design, so I can write on that. I've written a fair bit on health. So I don't feel uncomfortable moving from subject to subject.
Mhm.
But standard advice is, yeah, get super, super smart in a niche that people want. This is another thing, which is not, and I've been taken to task quite severely on Twitter for this. Don't go for the fun. And I'm not saying don't enjoy what you do. Fun is, oh, I want to write about music. I want to write about movies and video games and fashion. And that's awesome. Those are really fun, cool things. How many millions of people are competing for those assignments, as opposed to the people like me who took an assignment on pension reform for institutional investor, really paid well, learned a lot, loved it. And the editor had literally come to me and said, nobody wants this assignment. And I said, I do. You have to be, I think if you're going to make money, you go to the non-sexy places. I've written for mechanical engineering. I never studied engineering. I wrote about water sanitation. And I'm fine, and I enjoyed it. I think you have to be really flexible intellectually. If you go for the fun, cool stuff, and if you can make a living at it, awesome. I envy you. That would be so cool. And I would love to be that person. I don't know how many people are doing that now, so I think there's a lot of, I think to be a freelancer, and it sounds maybe pretentious, it's an attitudinal shift. You have to be, and I hate the language pivoting, but you have to be super flexible, be pivoting constantly. In a newsroom, and we've all done this, you might have 2 or 3 bosses. You might have 5 or 6, but usually talk to just a couple. When you're freelance, you might have, Lord, 10 people in a month that you're working with, different personalities, different deadlines, different payment schedules, different expectations. These are not bad things. I mean, it's perfectly fine. But, it's a lot of juggling. It's a lot of mental math. Like, people have whiteboards, people have like Trello, like, how do I keep track of this?
Oh my God,
And
Trello.
if you don't enjoy that, I guess what I'm trying to say is you have to enjoy these things, or there's enough stress anyway that if you're not enjoying those elements, I enjoy it. I like the variety. I like the different kinds of people I work with. In the last 3 weeks, I've written for, I wrote a personal essay for a website. They loved it. Quote, I love it. That was nice. No revisions. I wrote a music profile for a national newspaper, my former employer, the Globe and Mail in Canada. That was really fun. A couple of revisions. And the other piece was a massive piece for the New York Times, which soon will appear. It's been sitting for a while. We're going to get to the edit at the end of April. And I'm really excited about that piece. It's going to be super well read. It's tragic and powerful. And I choose my stories very carefully. And that's something else we should talk about, is being strategic in what you write. If you write generic stuff, you're not going to make much of an impression.
Mm-hmm.
Kaylin, you brought up writing for the Times, and with it, can you take us into what it's like, the process of what it's like to write for, let's say, somebody else, an entity like the Times, and then what's the process as a writer? What the waiting? It isn't just like, here's the article, here's your check, and you're done, right? Can you take us through the process of what
it's crazy. So I'll speak specifically for the Times. I've written 100 stories for them. So lots of different sections. I mean, sports, culture, oh my God, I can't remember the real estate, a lot of different, almost every section you can think of, short of national, because they don't take freelance. Well, you have to have good clips. If you're going to get to somebody there to take a chance on you, I don't think you can come in cold. Some people do, maybe for the opinion pages, maybe for an essay, maybe for an op-ed. That's different. For a reported piece, you know, you're going in the same paper as, you know, Pulitzer winners, and they want you to be really good. And I'm lucky. I worked for 3 major daily newspapers as a reporter before I started freelancing. So I know what I'm doing. Once you've cleared the bar of, okay, you're trustworthy, you didn't mess up, you didn't have mistakes, you know, all the basics, right? The editing process is completely mad. It's mad. And I can't say that for every section because I've written for lots of different sections. The current section I write for, no exaggeration, I have 4 editors. That's a lot of editors. So my story goes into my guy, my assigning editor. He sends me back a Google Doc. Basic questions, fine. I answer those questions. Then it goes into the Times, what's it called? Content management system. It's called Scoop. And then all bets are off. It's just like, it's madness. And so what happens is it gets sent to different editors.
Mhm.
And there'll be at least 2 more, often 3. But again, this section, it's the business section. And what happens is they read, and then they send back what's called a playback. So that's their edited version that comes back to me. And I have to read it really carefully, answer every question, you know, whatever they want, I got to do it. The questions are smart. It's fine. The challenge is there's no time on this. Like, you don't know when it's going to run. It won't be 2 a.m, but it could be anytime. So I just kind of have to clear the decks like the whole week because it's going to be the week. I'll get my story on Monday with my first edit. And then after that, sort of every day, maybe by Thursday, we're pretty much done because it's digital on Friday. It'll go print the following week. But every different editor has their questions. It's sequential. It's not simultaneous. And then I get every playback. So I've got at least 4 different versions I need to look at, read carefully, respond to. That is a lot. And then it goes up digitally. Thank God, I almost never, ever, thank God, have mistakes. I had one. The great news of digital, thank God, is we got the text from the person that was, it was a very minor mistake. And we were literally having pancakes at a diner on a Saturday morning. I went, oh shit, oh shit. But the good thing with digital is you can fix it within seconds. We know the right people. There's no huge recrimination. I have a long track record of excellence. I wasn't panicked about it. If it was your first piece, this wouldn't be fabulous. It was my like 112th or something. So it's rigorous. It's rigorous. I will say, and I'm not being Pollyanna, these are smart editors. They're not rude. They're not dismissive. It's not nasty. They don't rewrite me. They're clarifying questions. And one of the things I love about the Times, it's a global audience. And so, you know, the reference that works for somebody in Cleveland might not work for somebody in Karachi. And I've lived around the world, so I get that. But you have to remember that your references, you know, they might not make sense in another country. The Times is not just read by Americans. I'm not sure the percentages of their readership. My editor tells me, you know, we're mostly talking to Americans. Let's have American sources. For other sections, I've focused on, I did a piece for Styles, and I had people in Canada, in Sweden, in England. I mean, I'm very flexible. I've lived around the world. I speak other languages. I love a more global kind of reporting. For these stories, this tends to be American. Sorry, it's a really long answer.
No, but I was fascinated to learn about the process. One of the other
And
things,
then
oh,
at
there's
the end
more.
you get, and then at the end you get paid only after it's run. So it can be a very, very long time. Oh, the one good thing. So the bad thing is it's per word, it's a standard rate. The good news, it's direct deposit. Another thing, and this is really, really important to know, if you want to write for the Times, they're going to send you an ethics code that goes on like a CVS receipt. I mean, it's quite lengthy. You don't have to sign it, but you've gotten it, you've read it, don't mess with it. So things like you don't take free travel. Yeah, so who's writing the travel? I guess people who can afford nice trips. It's quite doctrinaire. And if you don't want to write for the Times, then don't write for the Times. But I mean, this is kind of, you dance with who brung you. So those are just a couple of timesy, and you know.
Is that the norm though, Caitlin? Is that the
No.
norm? No,
It's not. I honestly think it should be, to be honest. I think that's actually really smart. You know, one of the challenges of freelance, I didn't go to J school, but I've done this for a long, long time. And no disrespect to anybody, but I'm not sure everybody has the same sense of ethical boundaries. Oh, I'll take this present, or I'll take this trip, or I'll take this free meal, or I'll take that club, you know, I'll take. No, you won't. Or, oh, I'm going to write to this really new company and my brother-in-law is running it. No, you won't. like there are very clear boundaries and conflicts of interest. Maybe they talk about them in journalism school, but freelancers come from all different places and different sets of experiences. So I'm pretty darn clear, even without an ethics code, what I'm not going to do or am going to do. That's a concern of mine. That's a real concern of mine with other freelancers. Not making a judgment, but people are kind of making it up on the fly. And I'll give you one example that I think horrified is an understatement. And it was somebody who was taking money to do press releases. And I've done that, but there's a very clear line. I will never pitch those people. Are you kidding me? Of course not. And I do it rarely because it's not that interesting. But this person was taking money from PR people to write pitches and then selling them to people journalistically. No, that's insane. And this person had gone to J school. And so he mentioned it in a group of people. We all kind of went, like, there was not even any comment. People were just so horrified. There wasn't.
Yeah, I was completely like, wait, what?
Well, but this is what I'm talking about. So this is somebody who actually went to J school and still thought this was cool, probably because he was making twice the money of the rest of us honest suckers who only do one thing. I do PR consulting, but I never, ever work with any of their clients.
Gotcha. Okay, so what I guess I'm wondering, and maybe this is just more of a capitalism question, is can the pressures of freelance and the money flow, can that lead people to make questionable ethical questions? Okay.
Absolutely, no question. Yeah, no, it's a great question, Jenna. For sure, because
that story is still just like, it's still stuck in my head.
I would like it to be. I would like it to be, and I'd like all your listeners and viewers to be, holy shit, that's terrible.
Yeah, what?
That's your cautionary tale. So listen, there's no question. I mean, it's very tricky. One of the many things that's really problematic. So back in the day, you had FNASR. This is welcome to jargon. First North American serial rights. So when you sold a story to a magazine, they bought one-time use. That was it. So whatever money, then you could go resell that sucker in different iterations. I had one story, no exaggeration, I sold to like maybe 8 different outlets. Wall Street Journal, Sports Illustrated, a trade magazine, another trade magazine. It was a sailing story. Wrote it for Penthouse. There's 5, didn't even draw a breath, and got paid by each individual place for a slightly different version of the story. That is now very difficult because of social media. And not only is it difficult because it's out there once, and then you look like you're self-plagiarizing, but the contracts, God, don't even talk about contracts. They're like, in every iteration until the stars burn out, until your children's children have died. I mean, it's unbelievable. The IP grab, the intellectual property grab that is made, especially by the bigs, Condé Nast Hearst, the big sexy, bylines. Read those fucking contracts. They want everything. And they want podcasts, they want film, they want TV, they want every conceivable iteration of your original IP. So for your shitty little $2,000, $3,000 at most, maybe $5,000, $6,000, $7,000, God bless you. Well, there goes your freaking Hollywood film rights. Because my book, it was a book though. So my second book, which is about retail, was optioned by one of the networks. I forget which one. $5,000, big deal, came out of my advance. It's still pretty nice, but I had the rights to that. I had the rights to that, which was negotiated as part of my contract by an agent. We don't have agents. This is the other thing. We are vulnerable little, weenies out there in the universe going, well, this is what I want. If you're lucky, you find a lawyer that you can afford, probably not, who will review your contracts. I mean, we're very vulnerable economically and in terms of business because we're just kind of like out there. And then you get these shark pond contracts. You're like, right. So to be blunt, that's one reason I'm not writing for the big fancy magazines. I don't want to deal with those contracts. I don't want to look at them. They're so appallingly greedy. And you dance with your brung you. Are you going to negotiate with Condé Nast? Probably not very successfully. And most people are just like, not a problem. I'll sign right here. And they don't realize that they're allowing themselves to be sued and then be on the hook. And so the major publisher is like, oh, well, you sign that piece of paper. If there's a lawsuit coming in, that'll be your cost. I don't need that kind of stress. And so this is a whole other issue. This is really important. There will be stories that a freelancer goes, I'm not touching that. It could be an extremely important investigative piece. ProPublica's going to do it. They'll get the glory. The Times will do it, get the Pulitzer. The Journal will do it. The LA. They have backup, and they have in-house lawyers to protect them. We do not have this. When my second book came out about retail called Mauled, My Unintentional Career in Retail, I basically shit all over the North Face because I worked there and they were horrible. Worked there for 2.5 years. It was lawyered by the publisher. So they paid the lawyer to make sure that I was not committing a libel or whatever. And I wasn't. But that came with the book deal. When I write stories, I don't have that. Any freelancer who's writing a story and signs one of these shitty contracts is extremely exposed. When the book came out, I took out a $1 million liability insurance plan in case I got sued by the North Face. They didn't come after me. I was a nobody. But I just thought, just in case, I don't have a spare million. But look at the vulnerability. Look at the vulnerability when you take on the most important stories. And you know this as journalists, the most important stories are frequently truth to power. Corporate malfeasance or government malfeasance or who knows the fuck what. And those persons tend to have very expensive, well-paid attorneys going, fuck you, we're coming after you. It's very intimidating for an individual freelancer without the corporate backup, the corporate money and pockets and lawyers of a corporation behind you, NPR, CBS, NBC. They have lawyers. They have entire departments to make sure whatever ideally is going out is accurate. And if somebody says it's not, well, they've got backup. We got nothing. Freelancers have nothing. And so the problem is, and this is very worrisome to me as an ambitious writer, then you're going to write fluff because it's safe. Fluff is safe, right? I don't want to, but it really, you get into a kind of self-censorship. Not everybody, not all the time, because you cannot afford to be sued and you cannot take on the stress of worrying about a potential lawsuit. And some people, hello, America, are extremely litigious and have very deep pockets. And those might be the best stories. Like, hello, Epstein, right? Like that whole crowd. And that was the Times. Like it's the big institutional outlets that have the manpower, the lawyers, the money, the backup. And to be very blunt, it's very frustrating because I know dozens of super talented, ambitious freelancers who are able to do that level of work, but we cannot take the time. We can't afford to get sued. Pay rates are so low. We don't have 3-6 months to work on a story. We're shut out of using our skills to the same degree. And then we watch our peers winning, big awards, big grants, big fellowships, and like, coulda, shoulda, woulda. That's hard. Not everybody's at that level, but there are a lot of people with that talent. And
I believe you.
So that's hard.
Oh, that's sobering.
So Caitlin,
sorry, I'm trying to be cheerful.
No.
I'm thinking about it, and that is all very, very true. And it illustrates again what we all lose when all of these jobs in journalism disappear. But anyway.
Yeah.
And it's a reality too of what we're dealing with. I think that's the other part of it. It's not, it's so much better to know what you're walking into than to find out. I mean, listen, we all make mistakes, but if you have somebody who's telling you, hey, we see how this is being sold to you, but here's the realities, then at least you can make a better decision and how you deal with.
Yeah. And I totally agree. I mean, I really appreciate, letting me have this conversation with you, and hopefully, people will listen to it, but I don't want to say, don't do it. That's not at all what I want to say. I want to say you have to be prepared. When we initially had our chat before we did this, I did say, which I want to say again, have savings. I think if you come into freelance, somebody tweeted this morning and said, oh my God, I almost went bankrupt in my first few months as a freelancer because payments were late. It's very common that payments are late. There are contracts now that say 45 days, not 30, 60 days, that's 2 months, 90 days. Are you kidding me? Do your bills wait 3 months? Mine don't. I buy groceries every week. I need gas every week. I mean, this is insane. So you have to be literally financially ready. So I always say, I know it's not easy. You have at least 1 month, ideally 3 to 6. That's a lot. I get it, of savings. So when those payments come late, which they are going to do, editors get fired, editors go to maternity leave, editors take vacation. Oh, we lost your invoice. Like, there's a million reasons you will not get paid as quickly as you need to. If you have savings, you're like, okay, the bills are paid. Like I'm going to breathe. So to me, that's the number one, like beyond skill or talent or anything. It's just as long as things are being dealt with in your personal business life as they should be, then you don't have that stress. You don't have late fees. You're not worried. You're not like, oh shit, which bill do I pay this month? And I know freelancers in that situation, but just please don't be that person. And it is a challenge. The other thing, and this is very basic and very boring, you have to have the lowest overhead possible. This is not sexy, cool stuff. This is not like, oh, my latest computer. My computer, I looked the other day, I think it's 6 years old. It's fine. It does the job. You know, my phone is like, whatever. I think it might be 2 years old. I couldn't care less. I mean, I just don't care about that stuff. Some people do. Like if you have to have the latest, coolest, most expensive thing, I don't think this is going to be a great choice for you.
Yeah.
Because if you have that kind of peer pressure, forget it. Like forget it. Like this is really important. So this apartment I've lived in for a really, 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 really long time, decades plural. And one of the reasons I've stayed in the boring burbs and I have no kids and it's really boring is it's affordable. It is affordable. And I was single and paid all my bills as a freelance for 6 years. My monthly housing cost was $1,200. That's nothing to live near New York. Wow. And I was paying $500 a month health insurance. So do the math, $1,700 a month. And we're talking in the 90s. That's before groceries, gas, car insurance, car payment, health insurance, like $1,700 just to get out of bed in the morning. I don't have kids. I mean, you know, God forbid, if your mortgage is like $3,000 a month, and some people that's probably nothing. Well, can you meet those bills? Can you meet those bills on time every month? If you can, you're rocking and rolling. More power to you. But this is the reality of freelance. It's running a business. You need constant income. Other dirty trick, most people have a part-time job, a job. You're a barista. You're, you know, one of my freelance friends who's super talented. She's a waitress 3 times a week. She's making extremely good money in a high-end restaurant on tips. And she feels uncomfortable about it. And I'm incredibly proud of her because she's doing what she needs to do. She's doing what she needs to do. I couldn't care less. Like, just make sure the bills are paid. Make sure you're, you know, healthy and taking care of yourself. And then the freelance work will be less stressful because it isn't, oh my God, where's that bill? Where's that check? Here's the other thing. I don't know if you guys are riders. Everybody's ridden a horse. Horses smell fear and they throw you off and then you get like a spinal injury. People can smell desperation. When you get on the phone, and we sometimes speak by phone, your emails, if you start communicating like, that's not going to sell. That is not a sexy, alluring, attractive pitch. Nobody cares that you need the work. That is not what this is about. You are selling them a really cool, fascinating idea. They can't wait to buy. Like it's just, you know, smoke and mirrors sometimes, but you can't let the despair leak out. And I know that sounds absurd because there are days and weeks and months you're like, shit, this is not going well. Mm-hmm. And so if you have a part-time job, I don't care what it is, you're going to be calmer. And it's going to show in your demeanor. You'll go to conferences. Hey, great to meet you. You'll have a beautiful business card. I still have them and people really like them. MOO cards. They're gorgeous. You know, the phone calls when we have them, they're where you're relaxed. How are you? How's it going? Hey, how's your kids? Oh, I heard somebody just went off to NYU. How's it going? Relaxed, calm, professional. Not, you know, like no matter how
that makes perfect sense. And I'm hearing all of it, how it relates to us right now.
Right. And it's hard. It's not that it's not like you're being fake or being, you know, whatever, but so we're doing a series of pitching webinars and I hope maybe somebody will come and take them. They're extremely well reviewed. People are loving them. We're doing our 3rd one soon, me and a guy in England named Matt Potter. And one of the things that we talk about a lot is confidence, that your pitch is a sales document. And when you are pitching, you know, in an email, you know, maybe sometimes face-to-face, I met an editor recently, it was a face-to-face conversation. And you have to walk in confident. You walk in groomed and, you know, your hair is brushed and you're wearing the right clothes and whatever. Hey, how are you? Great to meet you. You know, and I sat down with this editor and he said, hey, do you have any pitches for me? And I said, no, which is not carelessness. I know the magazine really well. I said, no, I just want to get to know you. And in the course of conversation, we had an hour meeting over coffee. In conversation, he said, oh, there's a section of the magazine. I'm like, I have an idea. He said, absolutely. Sent me to the right editor who immediately said, yes, I want it. Bada bing. Relaxed conversation. Relaxed.
No, so I believe that does make a huge difference.
You have to. Even, and of course I was nervous. I mean, not super nervous, but yeah, it's a big magazine I wanted to be published in. But yeah, a lot of it is just projecting just a calm confidence, because we want that no matter who we talk to, your car dealer, like nervousness is normal.
Yeah.
Nervousness is normal, but
Yeah.
You know,
But don't lead with it.
I'm
Which
nervous.
is,
I'm
yeah.
nervous right now. So there
Oh
you
my God,
but
please don't.
go.
you're so passionate about all this. And, you know, a question we ask everyone at the end of the show is basically, how did you become a journalist? What drew you to journalism?
Oh my gosh. Great question. It's all I ever wanted to do. So my father made films. So I'm Canadian. We grew up in Toronto, in Montreal, and a little bit in Mexico. So my father was a really big name filmmaker in Canada. He won the Palme d'Or at Cannes, so he kind of knew his stuff for documentary. And so I grew up around, my dad did that, and my stepmother worked in TV, and my mom was briefly a journalist. And I was like, wait a minute, you get paid to go into the world, talk to really cool people, tell stories. Like, I want some of this. Like, it just, I couldn't imagine anything that would be, and I still can't, which is sort of sad, but it is the most extraordinary joy. I mean, I'm passionate because I really love it. And my heart breaks when people can't stay in it. I know people can't. We had a friend literally crying to us the other day, a young friend who is so talented, who had to quit journalism. I know a dozen people I can name easily who have had to leave the industry because they cannot sustain it. These are super talented people. I've had a great run. I'm in a different place in my career. And I need to say that, candidly, don't have kids, no student debt, not scrambling with a huge overhead. I mean, I'm just in a different time in my life, thank God. But I love it. It's a privilege. It's an extraordinary privilege. My personal finance stories are really hard to report, which is why I like doing them, because other people can't do them, because they're really intimate. What I love deeply about journalism, and I don't write about mascara, so I get that. But the stories that I'm really proud of and I do well, and maybe I'm known for, are intimate. And I don't mean smarmy and confessional, but I've written about, like, I wrote about my prenup. Well, that's pretty vulnerable. And I wrote about people who got money when they were young, but that was really hard to get people to talk to me. When I do a personal finance piece, I'm calling a total stranger going, hi, I'd like you to talk about money to 10 million readers of the New York Times. How about that? And they're like, fuck no, I would want to do that. And so there's a fair bit of like massaging and explaining. But one of the things that I do as a journalist, which is a whole other conversation, is I will sometimes say, been there, done it. Like, I've been through some of this. I'll give you an example. My mom and I were estranged for the last decade of her life. And I was her only child. So that wasn't, great. She died 4 years ago. And I wrote a story about estranged grief, which is a very specific thing. And for the Times, and the editor, which is my favorite story, went, nobody will talk to you. That's impossible. She said, I really want it. Nobody will talk. I went, oh, they will. And they did. And that story, at latest count, had 1,300 comments. That was a powerful, well-read story.
Wow.
And that's what I love about journalism, is when you can, finding people who will talk to you, making them as comfortable as you can. We're strangers. I get it. It's trust. It's intimate. And then, and this sound really, smarmy, and I don't care. The readers who read those stories, and this is the story that I love to do, they get up in the morning and go, fuck, there's nobody like me. Nobody understands me. I can't talk about this to anybody. Oh shit, there's a story in the Times. Holy shit, me too.
Mhm.
That to me is just an extraordinary power. I don't care what you're getting paid, that journalism still has. I don't care if you're freelance staff, early career, late career, bigs or not. Those are amazing moments of connection that, to me, I just can't imagine. I mean, I've often said, and you can laugh at this, I think the only work that is more emotionally intimate than what we do at its best, at that kind of level,
Mhm.
maybe a chaplain, a pastor, a minister, rabbi, whatever, maybe a therapist. Because at that point, and not every story is like that, you're really getting people to open up to you.
Mhm.
And then taking this, and sorry, I use a lot of metaphors. To me, it's a water balloon. Remember when you were a kid, you had a water balloon, and it's kind of like, oh my God, oh my God. And if you drop it, it's gone. And those stories to me are water balloons. They're very delicate. You have to handle them with incredible grace and finesse. But my God, what a privilege. They have given you this trust. And if you have good editors, and thank God the Times I do, it gets to, my God, a huge audience. You guys have had this. I see a few rewards on the back of that, shelf there. That was pretty cool. I got my National Magazine Award there, so there's mine. Sorry, it's a long answer, but yeah, I think it's an amazing thing that we get to do. And I'm sorry that it's so hard now. It breaks my heart. It breaks my heart. I want to tell more people, come and do it. It'll be great. It'll be financially more challenging than you want it to be, than it should be. But it doesn't mean don't do it. My God. And yes, there are grants, and yes, there are fellowships, and some people get them. I've applied for one that has 2,000 competitors. 2,000. It's absurd. It's absurd. And that they pick 30 people. So forget about it. But that's also me. And the other thing I want to just finish with, if I can have a second, you can edit it out. But
yep.
I'm also a photographer. Those are my images. And I do a lot of different things. So I do coaching, I do webinars, and I just sent, and I'm really nervous, I just sent a gallery of 25 images to a travel guidebook. I got the travel editors, I got the photo editors thing through Twitter, and she's looking at my images. And, if she buys one, that'd be cool. If she buys a lot, that'd be cool. I mean, we're going to get her guidelines. I'm like, shit. This to me is huge, that as a freelancer, the more skills you bring. I was teaching French last fall, teaching, not tutoring, teaching from zero, a homeschool teenager. And it was good money, and I got paid every Monday, and I loved it. And I have no shame in saying that. It doesn't mean I'm not a freelancer. It means I'm skilled and I have skills. And I think the absolutely happiest, best freelancers do ghostwriting, do books, do teaching, teach music. I mean, just do whatever you've got. But the more skills that you can bring, you're set, because then you're not relying on every check and every story and every editor. That will make you mad. I love the variety intellectually. I love the variety emotionally. I love having money show up. When I do my coaching, I'm paid in advance.
Yeah.
I don't wait. Our webinars, we get the money 3 days later. Sweet. It works. And so I think you have to find ways where your income is coming in, part-time job, whatever it is, you've got money coming in whenever you need it to come in. It doesn't have to be millions, but as long as you're, as long as the money is there, you're going to breathe. And then you're breathing easily. Will be like, here we go. You have the confidence, you have the ease, you have that sort of vibe of like, hey, let's have some fun. Let's do some cool work together, as opposed to, oh my God, where's my rent? Does that make sense?
No, that's great.
It
And
does.
actually, that's a perfect note to leave it on. Caitlin, I want to thank you so much for
Thanks.
taking time to share with us and teach us, basically.
A little bit.
No, but there's some really important points about
Thank
that you should know about
Thank
freelancing as a journalist. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us on the podcast.
Thanks so much for doing it. It was really fun.
Absolutely. All right. Well, it's time for our spotlights. And Dom, I know you're bringing us a special one this week.
Yeah, this one actually comes from the 19th News, which is an independent nonprofit newsroom that reports on gender, politics, and policy. Yeah, they're great. I remember for the show that we used to work for, we had them on.
When they
So
first started.
yes. This article is with Cowboy Carter. Black country music fans are front and center at last, and it's by Candace Norwood. We were talking about this. It's a great piece because it dives into the whole issue of how the fans and the people of Black fans of who have been fans of country music for years have been around, and sort of kind of how they've felt through the years, how the relationship with country music, because what started out, of course, with roots within the Black community has also become music. I guess they said like the 1920s, from what I was reading in the article, is when it became the demographic was they went after mostly white audiences. And it was just interesting reading about how Beyonce sort of this all came about. I remembered she did the performance at the CMAs
I was
with the
aware of
Chicks.
it. I didn't watch it, but I was aware of it.
I was a huge Chicks fan. Loved them, and I remembered that performance, and I remembered kind of how I was excited by it. But then all of a sudden online, there was also a reaction of people who were not so crazy about it because they didn't feel it was traditional country, and they didn't feel that was the appropriate. Some people didn't feel that was the appropriate place for that. so it was interesting hearing how that started and also then learning about, the history of country music. And it was also because somebody who was mentioned in here,
Hmm.
who you interviewed for our former show. Oh my goodness, Jenna. Why can't I not find him now?
Yeah.
Do you remember who I'm talking about?
I'm not sure if I know exactly who you're
Oh,
talking about.
Charlie Pride.
Oh, that's right. The Charlie Pride conversation. That dude was a character.
He was a character, but looking at how he also brought the music back in the 1960s,
Hmm.
and it again, it's just a very interesting historical article about the history of country music with Black artists, with the fans, the relationship, and I just found it to be really compelling. So I thought it was great.
Well, so one of the things, because it's weird, because I think I don't know, a couple episodes back or something, I had mentioned that article about Black punk. And one of the
Oh, that's right.
quotes that, yeah, that stood out to me
Yeah.
in this piece was from this woman, Tara Nelson, who was interviewed for the story. And basically, she says, it really kind of hit me that maybe country music was something that I should be listening to or enjoying, or at least, oh, sorry, something that I was not supposed to be listening to or enjoying, or at least that I should not say out loud that I listened to. And for me, again, that was very much hard rock and punk. But what I find so interesting in these, what is it, these movements, what is Beyonce calling it, her act, sorry, this is
Hmm.
act two, the country thing, is that she's some people are saying she's reclaiming music that has its roots in the Black tradition, which honestly at this point I think we can say pretty much all American music. But I read someplace else that somebody was saying that the music industry is made up of two people: artists who are just looking to create and whatever, and salesmen who are looking to sell.
Hmm.
And in a country like America, of course, everything being racialized, why would art not be included in that? And that's one of the things where that seems to have broken apart. Um, and also there was another Black woman who is a songwriter, a very popular songwriter whose name I can't remember, but she was interviewed about this album as well. And she mentioned that when you really think about it, um, genres are a made-up concept, the same way as race is a made-up concept. It's just that we've all been, browbeaten into adhering to the rules and regulations around these made-up concepts. And there's a clip actually in Beyonce's album of, I believe, a country woman, a Black woman in country music saying like genres are a funny thing. So while I'm warming up to this, like I'll be honest, I also had a soft spot for old school country music. Like I always liked Johnny Cash. I had seen some of the country music movies that came out, like Coal Miner's Daughter, I loved, etc. So it's not like I have a resistance to the music. I really don't. And I like Beyonce's take on a lot of it. I think it's really cool. I'm very curious about what Act Three is, because for
Hmm.
those of us who are Black hard rockers and punk kids, I'm dying to know if she takes on that genre next. But that's just like, that's what I'm looking to feed my soul. But I'm very happy to see. What I think I love most about this is that, again, it's a chance to see American Blackness expressed in a
Hmm.
different way. And for
Hmm.
so long, it's been like, there's this one way to be Black, and then that's it.
Hmm.
And no, we're as much of a spectrum as any other group is. So
That's
that's
what
what I love most about this.
that's what it is. She's probably at this point, who else could do this? She really has the power behind her of bringing about change. There aren't many artists out there like there aren't many people out there like that.
No.
This really has the ability to shake up an entire industry. And I think she knows that. And that's why she's also highlighting a lot of different artists on the album. In addition to having, of course, like the Dolly Parton on it. I mean, Dolly, who's an icon also in her own right. But I love seeing this because I think, it started back with Lil Nas X a few years ago.
Hmm.
And I think that was something too that people saw change coming within country music. And I've enjoyed it. There were certain artists that I do enjoy. I don't listen to it regularly, and it's not something, but I do have certain people that I will follow. So I'm excited to see and hear new music from new artists. So yeah,
Yeah, we're all learning a lot. All right. Well, thanks a lot, Tom.
thank you, Jenna.
All right. Talk to you next
Bye.
week.
Bye. Bye.
Laid Off and Looking is an independent podcast conceived of and created by Jenna Flanagan and Dominic Kemia. Music provided by Jay Cowett, research by Lori Ruthenbucker. Reach out to us anytime at laidofandlookingpod@gmail.com. New episodes drop every Friday at noon.